my name is Lynette. I'm the co-founder of Remind Psychology Center. Professionally, I am a licensed and registered counselor. Personally, I'm a 1-year-old fur mom who is obsessed with my Pops Manja face. Together with me is Sabella. She's also the co-founder of Remind Psych. So Sabella, why not you introduce yourself?
All right. Thank you, Lynette, for that warm welcome. Very good evening to all of you. My name is Sabella. I am trained in developmental psychology, also in family therapy. I am a mom of a very, very active preschooler now. And I also do have a fur child who is currently residing in Penang. And very honored to have here with us this evening Kinji, who is going to be the star of our dialogue this evening. And Kinji is actually a licensed and registered counselor. He's also an LGBTQ plus affirmative therapist. Also tutors at Monash, the undergraduate program. And more than that, he's also a podcaster. So yes, he wears many hats, plays many different roles, but in view of today's topic, Kinji, perhaps you can tell us more about yourself and your journey as we discuss queer mental health. Sorry, can't hear you. The mic. Yes. No.
Can you hear me? Okay, sorry. Right. So thanks for the introduction, Sibella, and I'm also really happy to see so many participants. I'm quite surprised. So thanks for taking time to join us. So my name is Kinji, and as Sibella introduced, I am a queer affirming licensed registered counselor, tutor. I am born and raised in Petaling Jaya, BJ. I'm still here now. I also have a fur kid. Well, not really fur kid, maybe fur brother, because we got him when I was a kid. So yeah, he's like 15 years old now, really old. Yeah. So that's a bit of me. How I got into this journey to become a queer affirming therapist or counselor really is just well, I guess it has to do with my own identity as well. I guess my own queer identity, but also more than that is also just trying to do the right thing, because seeing all these issues in society and having such a privilege to do something different as a therapist, not everyone has the luxury, right, or privilege to pursue this journey, to pursue this career. So I feel like I had to do something with it, and so here I am.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. So why not you start us on? So I was just telling Kinji, that okay, let's make this session real interactive. Let it be as casual as possible. And if you have any questions, whether or not whether you're from the LGBTQ community or you are a therapist yourself and you would like to learn more about how you can be of a better support, a better ally to individuals of the LGBTQ community, feel free to ask questions, and I'm sure Kinji will be able to answer them to his best ability. So Kinji, why don't you start us on what are some of the minority stress that you have encountered in your work with individuals who are in this community?
Right, so minority stress. Well, let me start by maybe briefly defining what it means, in case some people don't know. So minority stress is when certain groups of people in society, they experience greater or additional levels of stress because of prejudice and discrimination. It could be based on their race, gender, and in this case, for queer people, it's because of their sexuality and or gender identity, right? So it has three main aspects: unique, chronic, and systemic. So it is unique because only people in the LGBT community face them. People outside of that don't really face these issues. It is chronic because it is long-term. It is repetitive over time. It doesn't just stop when something happens. It is repetitive as long as the system doesn't really change. It's also systemic, which is linked to chronic, but it's systemic because there are existing systems in this society that we live in that contribute to those discrimination. For example, the government, the law, societal norms, and whatnot. So these are three aspects of minority stress. I do want to walk our our participants through like a story, if that's okay. I have a PowerPoint just so it's a bit more interactive as well, like a story of a fictional character, but it's also based on a lot of real life people whom I've met. So, right, I'm gonna share screen and, oh, cannot share screen.
Okay, done.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Chaos?
I think would be interesting also if Kinji you can walk us through like the existing challenges that is faced by Malaysians, because that would be most relevant.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
what is it happening here? Because it's like we know we have friends who are in this community, but we don't really know how do we want to be an ally for them.
Okay, yeah, that would be great to discuss as well, to address. Okay, so can y'all see the whole screen or is it blocked by the, okay, so I guess on my side it's only, okay. I want to walk you through, okay, these are the two terms that I feel like people should know before I explain further. So I've used this word just now as well. So queer is an umbrella term to describe LGBT identities. So instead of saying LGBT all the time, I just say queer. Okay. Heteronormative. This is a bit more complex. So this is basically the assumption that everyone is and should be heterosexual and cisgender by default. So you all know heterosexual means straight people. Cisgender means that your gender happens to be the same as the sex that was assigned to you when you were born. So if the doctors assign you as female based on your physical characteristics, and you later on identify as female, it makes you cisgender, right? So heteronormative is basically the assumption that people are heterosexual and cisgender. Okay. So let's go into the story of Billy. Again, fictional character. So Billy here, he's a Malaysian and he, well, let's make it in Chinese, Malaysian Chinese. And he has always been a very sensitive and a gentle child. So he feels a lot. And that because of that, he also cries a lot when he's sad or when he's feeling any other feeling. So if it's happened to be sadness, he will cry a lot. And his favorite toy to play with is the bunny here, which is Fluffy. He names it Fluffy. So he loves playing with that bunny, carries it all around with him. His other hobbies as a child includes like playing with cooking sets, those masak that we used to play as a child. Also dollhouse. He loves to interact, get the characters to interact with each other in the dollhouse, and also design the interior of the dollhouse. So he loves doing all of that. But his Chinese relatives, who are a bit traditional, they oftentimes come and visit Billy and his parents. So when they come to visit, what do you think they will say? What do you think? What comments do you think they will have? Being a conservative and more traditional. Anyone?
Yeah, that they have to man up and things like that.
Yeah. When they see him cry, yeah, it's a good point. What about the toys that he plays with? Do you think they have any comments on that?
Yeah, they're too girly, I suppose.
Okay, right. Yeah, thanks for the contribution. So yeah, they will probably say something like, why does he always cry like a girl? Why is he always crying? It's not really okay for boys to cry. And then yeah, they probably say something like, why is he always playing with that bunny, that dollhouse?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah, so they were telling his parents, you guys should get him toys that are for boys, that are more appropriate for boys, and maybe get him something else. And the parents, obviously, understandably, they are a bit concerned as well. And so they would be like, oh, okay, but right, like, what if he turns out to be, gay or something in the future, then life would be hard for him. And so they're a bit worried, understandably. And so what they did was, well, I mean, they're well-intentioned, but still what they did was got him toys that are for boys. So they got rid of the dollhouse and cooking sets, and they told Billy that, you know what, these are not really suitable for you. So that, these are good toys. These are Power Rangers and cars that you should play with these toys. You're gonna love these toys. And they also told him that, it's to toughen up a bit, not to cry over every single thing. So that's what they tell him. And little Billy here, what do you think, what kind of thoughts do you think will come up for him when his parents tell him these things and give him these toys?
He's probably confused.
Yeah, confused. Okay. I'm just looking at the chat now. Oops, sorry. Yeah, those are from girls. Okay. Thanks for the. Yeah, he's probably quite confused. Like, what is wrong with the dollhouse or the bunny or the cooking set? I love playing with those. So, wait. Okay. Let me.
Probably also upset, right?
Yeah.
Because I really enjoy playing with all those things, but then suddenly it's taken away
Mm.
from me.
Mm.
And now like I have this bunch of toys that I might not even be interested in.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So upset and confused as to why what's wrong with the toys I played with previously. He would also he might also think like it's like, oh, I'm a boy and so I should play with these toys instead. Yeah, he's upset, but he also wants to make his parents happy because as a child, your parents as a child, we depend on our parents for survival, literally. And so we would unconsciously like try to do everything we can to make our parents happy, right? And so that includes playing with toys that they think I should play with. And so this is what he feels. And so he's like, okay, I'm just gonna play with these toys since they took away the other ones. And then a few years later, he's going to school, and school isn't any better because he tries to be different, but still he trying to be like normal, so-called normal, but he's still a bit different than other boys. So in school, he was bullied by classmates, schoolmates, and because of his mannerisms and because he's a bit more feminine, he's not like so-called boyish or masculine and like the other boys. And so they would say things like, "Oh, why do you act gay?" And this is like before they even know what the word gay means. But people associate gay with feminine, which is not true. But sometimes it can be, but it's not true. So why do you act gay? Are you a girl? And so all those really harsh comments and words being said to Billy throughout his school years. What kind of emotions do you think will come up for him throughout the school years? Anyone? Okay, let me see the chat. Feeling isolated, loneliness, yeah, for sure. There is no one to be friends with. Everyone seems really mean. Yeah. He'll feel the need to hide himself and act like someone else. Yes, for sure. If like so-called faking it till you make it right, like try to suppress who he is and be like someone else. Feeling different, lack of belonging, yeah. Yeah. I think feeling different is really like the most obvious feeling that comes up for kids, not just like kids, like queer kids or kids are different, but just any kids who it's a bit different than the norm, right? They will feel different and that is very obvious, it will come up. Yeah, and so thanks for contributions. And so he would probably feel, why is it not moving? Shame. Shame, probably a very potent feeling that will come up for him. Because shame is about your whole being, right? It's like, okay, what's wrong with me? My parents say I can't play with those toys. I have to be a certain way. That my friends also say like this, that, why am I acting like a girl? So shame, anxious, because obviously going to school every day is a threat because there's potential that I'll be bullied or teased, and that doesn't make me feel good. And also anxious, trying to hide who I am, like someone commented just not trying to hide who they are and be someone else. And like someone commented as well, not belonging. So for kids and teenagers, belonging is as important as basic needs like food and water and shelter, right? Um, they don't feel like he doesn't feel a sense of belonging in school, and that will have a really detrimental effect on him later on in life. So yeah, these are the feelings that throughout school he's feeling all these things. At home doesn't really help either. Fast forward a few years later, he grows up to be a young adult, maybe about 18, 19. He starts to discover that, oh, he does have same-sex attraction. So meaning he likes boys. So, surprisingly, his schoolmates were actually right, even though they don't know what gay means. But yeah, he turns out to be gay and he likes boys. And this is where more issues come out for him. He realized he has same-sex attraction, but he looks around and all he sees are straight couples holding hands, dating in real life. He sees straight people, straight couples. In the media, also the same thing, straight couples. I mean, how many K-dramas have queer couples? No, right? Most K-dramas, all straight couples. So he looked at the media, straight people, straight couples. And so he's like, what is going on? You know, I feel so different and there's no one like me out there and on the media. And so he probably thinks something like, why do I feel different from people, from my friends? You know, am I gay? Is that a bad thing? Because obviously the first thing would be, is it a bad thing? Is it a bad thing because there wasn't really a good example shown and there wasn't really any support during his childhood with regards to people who are a bit different. And the main thing is mom and dad can't find out. That would be not just Billy, but across so many other queer people, is my parents can't find out. So this is something they try to hide from their parents. And knowing that the parents seems like not supportive, so obviously he would want to hide it, right? And then looking at the local news doesn't help either, because look at this. Every local news you see is anti-LGBT movement. And basically, yeah, people saying bad things about people like him. Even on the extreme end, LGBT people getting physically punished in public by the government. Yeah. And then he also sees every other day politicians saying something homophobic or transphobic and just saying things like, we don't approve of the LGBT lifestyle and so many other words like that. And he's seeing all these things and, he's seeing all of these things. There's really no positive stuff with regards to being LGBT, right? So whenever he thinks of his sexual identity, he links it to negative. He links it to pain and hurt. So so far in the story, what kind of stressors could you identify in Billy's life? Someone say something. Anyone? You can share in the chat as well. Any stressors, any source of stress that you can see?
I would say maybe like, you know, that lack of acceptance in society, like you just can't even be part of society if, you know, he were to identify as queer.
Right. Yes, lack of acceptance. That and acceptance is something so something that people really want, right? And as someone who is queer, Billy doesn't have that. And someone wrote, seeing the opposition to you just being you, I would say is a very common stressor. Yeah, I mean, you're just existing, you're not like hurting anyone, you're just existing as yourself. And you keep seeing all this opposition from the government, from society, from the law, and everywhere else. Yeah, that is a very common stressor. Perhaps he might feel unsafe being out in society as a queer person. Yeah, I think this is something a lot of queer people face in Malaysia, especially transgender people, because I guess for gay lesbians, they maybe can still quote unquote hide it, right? But for trans people, it's a bit harder to hide it. So yes, they feel unsafe, and we've seen news of trans people being physically attacked and murdered, and nothing's being done about it. So yeah, might feel unsafe. Andrea says unable to be himself. Yes, that is something. I think that's almost like a privilege that some people take for granted, right? Just being themselves. For queer people, it's like something as seemingly simple as that also like cannot. Doris said, I imagine there might be some difficulty forming genuine connection in terms of friendships. Yes, and I'm going to get to that later as well. But yes, when you don't know who you are, or when you try to suppress who you are, yeah, it's hard for you to form friendships, right? And relationships. Seems like stresses all around. Yeah.
I think it's really something very jarring, you know, the fact that when Ian started pointing out that, you know, it's an opposition that you can't be yourself.
Yeah.
That sounds really sad actually. Like there can be many reasons for someone to be against something, but now it's someone
Yes.
against you for being just yourself. And I think that sounds
Yeah.
really sad.
It is. And when we talk about like having everyone's entitled to their opinions, but in this case the opposition opinion is against someone's whole being and existence. I mean, that's not an opinion, that's just trying to eradicate the whole existence of someone. Yeah. And so yes, that is very true. And I think what I say is like wearing a shoe size that is not for you. Yeah. The world isn't made for queer people, and now we're trying to fix that, we're trying to undo that. But yeah, it's all by design, really. Yeah, it's not designed for queer people, and that is not accidental. That is on purpose. Yeah. So thanks for sharing all of that. Your great points. Okay. Homophobia, yes, this is along the lines of what everyone's mentioned. Homophobia, on the extreme end of it is violence, like against the Malaysian women cane, right? That's violence. Media and societal erasure of queer people. So Billy would probably feel really invisible in society, because people have been saying that queer people don't exist, right? Apparently, that's what they say. So yeah, erasure. Also, yeah, someone said as well, suppressing or hiding their authentic self. It's a big stressor to have to hide yourself. So again, thanks for the contribution. Yeah, so these are some of the stressors, and let's go to the final part, which is impact. How does all this impact Billy? And before y'all type your answers, I just want to, I guess, emphasize that when you think about Billy's childhood and adolescence, the foundation of his self-worth is really, really weak and unstable when you think about it, right? If it's more stable, maybe he won't be impacted so much by the stressors. But from childhood time, already not stable, the foundation of who he is. The parents are really sort of asking him to suppress himself in some ways and be someone else. Schoolmates and teachers as well, same thing. There's no support for his identity development. But in the they actually did the reverse. They're trying to like make him into someone else. And so that foundation is really, really important. If you read about like developmental psychology and all that, you would know that the first few years is very important. And so that foundation is really, really rocky. And so that just made the impact on Billy more severe and intensified. Yeah. So what are some impacts do you think Billy faces, that the impact of the stressors on him? Anyone? What are some impacts? How does it affect his life and him? That's right. There's no right or wrong answer. Oh, there's one. Okay, good. Ian says he will try to act in the way society tells him to act, and that causes a lot of identity problems. Yes, yes. I wrote this down as one of the points as well. Yeah, when you are not who you are, you will face an identity crisis, which I'll explain a bit more later. And that will have a ripple effect as well on other areas of your life. Dawn says low self-awareness and confidence. Yeah. Yeah. When you're busy trying to suppress this part of yourself, it's hard to be aware of your whole being. It's hard to be aware of your emotions, of your thoughts and behaviors, and all that. And obviously low confidence. Andrea says low self-esteem, high anxiety. Yes. So from the school days onwards, there's really high anxiety, and it's all carried forward into adulthood as well. Doris says poor mental health in general. Yeah, just all around, all around, just poor mental health. Struggling with mental health. Yeah, that is very true. Anyone else before I click? Okay. In the long term, he might engage in meaningless heterosexual relationships and never find fulfillment. Yes, if he still feels the pressures to fit in for whatever reasons, maybe from his conservative family, then he might do something like that. He might date girls, he might force himself to be straight, you know, and obviously that wouldn't end well for anyone, really. Not for him, not for the other party as well. Yeah. It might rubber band into recklessness. Okay, recklessness. Right. Yeah. I have seen some, well, not my queer clients, but some queer people in general, they do act a bit more recklessly because of all the issues that they have. So it's hard to be, it's almost like it's what we call second adolescence for queer people. You know, in your teenage years, you really go wild, right? You just go wild and explore everything. But for queer people, they don't have that luxury to do that during their teens. And so they do that during their young adults, in their 20s maybe. And so you might see a lot of so-called immature or reckless behaviors in that, but it's not without reason. It's because they didn't have the chance to make mistakes and to be reckless during their adolescence. Yeah. Andrea, it may impact his work as well if they found out he is gay. Yes, and they are not queer friendly. Yes, this is so true for especially for trans people, but also sometimes for gay people. Yeah, if the work is really like just maybe you work in a government sector and they're not very queer affirming, and so if they find out something like that, then yeah, you might lose your job, and that has very like real life consequence, doesn't it? And that again ripple effect on other areas of your life, right? Right. Thanks for all these great answers, and yeah, really great like actual possibility that these things could impact him. I'm gonna go with, yeah, this is what I have, which is along lines of what people have said as well. Shame. So with shame, there is a core belief of I'm a bad person, I am unlovable, I'm worthless. So these are core beliefs that Billy probably internalized over the years, right? So that accompanies shame. Okay, let me check the chat. I think someone has something. Oh, okay, it's Lynette. Okay, yes. Yeah, if you have any questions, just you can ask later as well. Shame, core beliefs, accompanying with self-hatred. Not only is he unable to accept himself, he hates himself. And that is like actually a really strong thing, to hate yourself. Identity crisis, as one of our participants said just now, yes. If you really spend all his time and energy trying to hide this part of who he is and this aspect of who he is, so he won't have any energy and time left to discover other areas of himself, right? So in the end, what happens is he doesn't know who he is. Like Billy doesn't know who he is. He's just in an identity crisis into his 20s and 30s if he doesn't work on it. And with that, hard to form meaningful relationships, which is what someone said just now as well. If you don't know who you are, yes, it is hard to form meaningful relationships because you're going to move through the world putting on a mask or putting up a wall, and people can actually feel that. People can feel that energy from you, and it prevents you from forming deep friendships or deep connections. Maybe surface levels, okay, acquaintances, maybe you can make some, but meaningful friendships and relationships, yeah, probably a bit harder for him to do. And because of that, loneliness and lack of support system. Yeah, loneliness. And he's having all this anxiety, depression, but there's no one really to support him. No one he can really lean on. Family, obviously not. They don't even know he's gay. Friends, he hasn't really made much friends, so no support system. And that loneliness is a cycle, right? It just intensifies your issues. And then that issue intensified also makes it hard for you to reach out to people, which increases the loneliness. So it's a vicious cycle. And this is something not talked about a lot. So pent-up anger, which is, I would say, something a lot of queer people feel, not just queer people, but minority groups, like even like women living in a patriarchal society. I think they call it female rage. So I feel like here is queer rage. Yes, there is a lot of rage and anger because anger really is an appropriate response in Anger is an appropriate emotion in response to repetitive injustice and abuse. in the system. So for queer people, like Billy, yes, pent up anger. So Billy probably feels angry and very irritable, but he doesn't even know why. And so this is why. It's been building up since childhood, since parents don't let him play the toys, relatives say something, schoolmates tease him, teachers doesn't help. And into adulthood, politicians say bad things about people like him. You read all these local news. I mean, can you imagine how much anger builds up over time with nowhere to express? Yeah. And because like Malaysia, we can't go out and protest. We don't have pride parades. We don't protest, right? So there's really no avenue for you to really like let it out and like demand justice, so to speak. Yeah. So final point, coping mechanism disguised as personality trait. So on the surface, people would probably find Billy to be a very hardworking person. Like, oh, Billy's a hard worker, you know, he always stays up, like OT and all that. And he always, you know, do 101% on his work. But deep down, he really is an overachieving perfectionist. Yeah, so he tries, yeah, he is a perfectionist, and he works really hard to compensate for the lack of self-worth, which is also seen in a lot of queer people. And aside from that, people would also see Billy as a bit of a lone wolf. So Billy is very independent, Billy is self-sufficient, and he doesn't need anybody. But deep down, he does need people, but it's just that he don't really trust people because people haven't really been trustworthy, have they, since throughout his whole life. So yeah, so he's not really a lone wolf by choice. It's just a coping mechanism to deal with, you know, the lack of trust in people and that he's been hurt by people before. So yeah, I'm gonna stop sharing. This is the whole story of Billy. I wanted to share it in a story because I think it's more engaging than just listing down facts, right? And so Billy is just one example. There is so many people like Billy, some with even more severe experiences. Yeah, so that's just the reality of it.
Is it common for most people that you know or clients that you've seen are like Billy? Or this is just like a handful of them? Like how often do people develop to what you have mentioned just now?
I think I mean, I don't want to generalize, right? But I do think it's more common. I would say more common than we think. With most queer people facing or experiencing some of these to some extent. And I think it all goes back to foundation as well. You know, like if the parents are supportive, if they didn't really suppress his identity when he was young, if they let him play with the toys that he wants to play and let him cry all he wants and be supportive, then I think he can have a stronger foundation. And so when he goes to school or when he goes up into adulthood, face all these bullies, he will still be a bit okay and not as affected because his foundation is strong. So I've seen clients with some with strong foundation, then they're okay. But a lot of them don't have strong foundation because parents sometimes don't know what they're doing. They're just trying their best, but it's not enough sometimes. And parents don't educate themselves. And so, yes, result in all this rocky foundation from childhood. Yeah.
Right. What really stood out from your story just now was the under impact part, right? The part where you talk about how identity crisis, you know, how they spend so much time trying to figure out who they are, and they have not enough time, or at least lost out on time on building more meaningful friendships with other people, which all these things most heterosexual people probably take it for granted for. And I feel that is very impactful for me to actually realize that point, which I've never really realized that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because yeah, I think that is something that people don't realize. It's a privilege. I mean, it shouldn't be a privilege, but it is for some people, right?
Yeah.
That is it's just identity. Of course, you go through finding out who you are, but queer people don't have that luxury sometimes, and their focus is to be safe, to survive, and that means hiding who they are. Yeah.
Thank you. We have a question from Andrea.
Okay. Do you know how does the queer community treat each other? Yeah, Yeah, Andrea, you're right, and that's so unfortunate. Yes, I think this is all internalized homophobia, which yeah, I didn't mention, but yes, gay versus bisexual. There's a phenomenon or a term called bisexual erasure or bi-erasure, which is like the erasure of bisexual people. Like if you're bi, people say, oh, you're on the fence, just pick a side. But bi people exist, they are real, and their identity is valid. They like both genders. That is valid. But yeah, some gay people would be like, no, it's not, pick a side. So I think there is a lot of internalized homophobia there. It's funny because like society wants us to put us in boxes, right? And then queer people go on and do that to their own people. And so it's like, yeah, a lot of inner work to do. Yeah. So yes, you're right, Andrea. Sometimes, I'm not saying all of them, sometimes they can be a bit toxic. And because they're not healed. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
That's
So
a bit like how among people there's also racism. So this is
yes.
racism within. Can I put it that way?
Yeah, it's almost like that. Yeah, it's like within or yeah, or sexism within, like some women judge
Right.
other women more harshly, right? Yeah, or some men judge other men more harshly, and so it's like it's within. Yes, so that is true, and that is unfortunate, but we don't need that. But unfortunately, they don't go therapy, they're not healed, so it's like, yeah, that's what happens.
Yeah, I guess the term hurt people hurt people.
Yes,
Heal people
yes,
heal people. Yeah.
yes,
I think
very
that's
true.
really important.
Mm.
And as since you mentioned about women, right? Like, is there difference, like gender differences in how lesbians grew up to be versus gay? Can I put it that way?
Yeah. So I don't have a lot of actually I don't have any lesbian clients actually. I think I have bisexual clients who are women, but I don't have lesbian clients. So I'm not sure, but I do think there are some parallel in terms of like lesbian women are also pressured to act a certain way, right? If they don't like yeah, they're also pressured to get married. I think women are more pressured to get married, and so imagine that kind of pressure on lesbian women, like what that would do, right? And so yeah, I do think there are some parallels, or maybe also some differences. Yeah.
Thank you. We have a question here. Could you elaborate more on the secondary adolescence that you mentioned?
Okay. Yeah. So this is something that a lot of queer people experience. So like I said, during adolescence, they may not always have the safe space to explore who they are, to date people, to have crushes, or even openly express they have crushes. And so they need to hide it. And then they don't get to do all of that. And so during young adulthood in their 20s is where they have more autonomy and more safer space to do all of that. And so you might see them acting a bit reckless or a little bit immature or irresponsible during their 20s. I'm not saying all of them, some of them. Yeah, and so there's a reason for that. That is like so-called their second adolescence that they're trying to live out. Because we all need to live out those experiences, right? It's all part of like the developmental journey as a human being. Yeah. That's not sure if it applies to non-queer. I don't know if it maybe I don't know. I think it depends on your experience. Like I have heard again, I follow a lot of feminist page on Instagram, so I see a lot of stories of women who are always expected to be more mature than boys, and so girls are always expected to be mature and be responsible. And so I think a lot of girls grow up into women who they may not feel like they have lived out their adolescence either because of, especially if they're the eldest daughter, for example, there's a lot of pressure there as well. So yeah, I've seen some, again, I think minority groups, right? Like you could call, yeah, minority groups would face that a bit more. Yeah. Yes, exactly. There's a stereotype that gay people especially, there's a stereotype that they are wild and party people and irresponsible. There's a reason for that. Yeah. Thanks for all the questions. Really insightful questions.
I'm also just curious, because like as you were sharing all this, and I have to be very honest because
Mm.
like I am also on this learning journey to understanding like the queer community better as well. But I have also been curious because I actually went to high school in an all girls high school. And what I've noticed is actually, I would imagine that during our adolescence, that's when we want to seek, identify, like seek our identity, we want to experiment, we want to explore, we take risks. And I have actually noticed that there were a lot of schoolmates around me that would then identify as lesbians. Back then they would have partners, right? But then as we grew into adulthood, and then now like most of us have our families, I've noticed that then they shift into having their own families, into a very heterosexual type of family. So yeah, just curious if that
Okay. So
yeah.
interesting. So they actually did experiment and they like who they like in the school, but then as they grew up, they sort of like try to fit in again.
Yes. So I have seen actually those who were in a relationship back then, right? They now have children. They are married to their spouses. So yeah, sometimes curious if there is perhaps that bisexual element, or perhaps maybe because there's so much pressure from society that they then feel the need to just follow the norm, even though it's not part of who they are or what, Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really insightful, like that you notice that, because I do think there could be bisexual element there. They could simply be bi, or they could simply experiment. It's just experimenting for them, and later on they realize that, oh, maybe I like guys a bit more at this point in my life, so they married a guy and they have kids. So they could be bi, they could be fluid. It's something we call sexually fluid as well, where they don't really label themselves, but they just go with their feelings. And so they just go with the attraction, the feelings at the given moment. So it's not really fixed in time. It could change over the years, kind of thing. I think it could be that, but it could also be it could also be a sadder reason, which is pressure, right? Yeah, it could also be in school, they feel like they have the space. It being an all-girls school maybe makes it easier to date girls. So they do that, and it feels like a bubble, maybe a safe bubble for them to do that. But as they grow up, they obviously face more pressure, maybe from parents or relatives to get married or to have children or whatever. And so it could be that as well. But I think that's really interesting. Yeah.
We've got another question now from Darius.
Out of curiosity, do most of our clients identify as queer? Actually, most of them who come to me, they already know they are queer. So I haven't really got clients who is exploring. Maybe because I don't have a lot of young clients. Most of them are in their 20s already. So by that time, they kind of know already. I guess exploring, maybe one, but I wouldn't even say exploring. That client, he kind of know he's gay. It's just that he's still like learning about it, and also he feels like, could I be straight? Could I also be or bi? And so I feel like he's thinking. He knows he's gay. He knows he likes boys, but does he also like girls? So kind of questioning, I guess. But I don't think I have too many clients who are in the midst of exploring, unless they're teenagers. Yeah, which I don't really see a lot of teenagers. So maybe that's why.
Right. Thank you. I have a question, but I'm guessing that this question has probably something to do with the second part that we would like to address. And that is, I noticed that you indicate pronouns beside your name on your Zoom profile here, like bracket he/him. Why is it important?
Okay, thanks for
What's the
asking.
significance?
It's basically not assuming the person's pronouns just because of how they look. Just because they look masculine doesn't mean they go by he, him, doesn't mean they're male. And same for female as well. And so it's just, something I've recently practiced. I don't do this before. I recently put this into practice. Like, try to put your pronouns beside your name. If you're in a Zoom meeting, for example, if you're introducing yourself to someone for the first time, try to say, "Hi, I'm Kinji. My pronouns are he, him." Something like that, just so that you show people that you don't want to assume anything, that you're not assuming that the world is binary, it's just male, female. Some go by they, them pronouns, right? And so no assumptions. Just ask, just as you ask for a person's name, you also ask how they go by, how they identify. Yeah.
Is it something very significant in the community? Like when we do this, that means we show respect?
Yeah, I would say yes. Yes, it is quite important to do, especially for non-binary, or sexually gender fluid people, or gender non-conforming people. It's to really show people that you're not assuming. And this is something I want to talk about later as well, which is, if you're an ally, if you're queer affirming or queer friendly, at least you have to show people you are, because I think it will benefit queer people a lot, especially those in a closet. They don't know who is friendly, who is homophobic, ally. So you need to tell them that, yes, I am an ally. I know about pronouns and stuff, and I'm practicing it. Yeah.
How else do you think we can be an ally? And I also want to set this, I mean, I would also like to set the context here that I understand that among us, there are some therapists. There are also probably lay person here who wants to just learn more about what queer community or queer mental health is. But I guess we're coming from the angle whereby not a therapist, but really how can I be a better ally for my LGBTQ friend, for my queer friends, or even family members. Yeah, so how do we better support?
Right. Basically, everyday people, what can they do, right? Wait, I saw something in the chat, so I'm going to briefly address that first. Wei said she knows someone who felt pressure to conform. She's bisexual. She got married, had children. Oh, okay. Yeah, see, that's quite common as well. People who, and again, sexuality is not fixed. It's quite fluid. It can change over the years. You could realize something new later on in your life. And yeah, she's been a lesbian all along, and bisexual feels safer. So it doesn't mean that bisexual identity doesn't exist. It is valid. It's just that some people feel like it's more acceptable to society to be bi, because at least they still have one foot in the other side, right? And it's like they can oscillate if they need to. Yeah. So they rather not identify as a lesbian. Yeah. So thanks for sharing, Wiggy. Yeah, I've seen that happen before as well. Not my own clients, but just on Instagram and all that. People share the stories. Yeah. Okay, allyship. So I would say first thing, to be an ally, and even as a queer person myself, I'm still learning every day how to be a better ally, right? So I would say it's always listen and educate yourself. By listening, I mean, if you have queer friends or if you know queer people, listen to them, listen to their experience, their lived experiences, right? If you don't know anyone, then you can go on YouTube and search, or TikTok, Instagram. There's a lot of accounts that are run by queer people that you can learn, and that's where you can educate yourself as well, just to empower yourself with those knowledge, right? Just maybe learn the history, especially learn the terminologies. I think that's the basic things that you can learn. And of course, learning their stories, because I think stories are so powerful and so important, and it can really shift your whole perception and emotions as compared to facts or like numbers and stuff like that. Yeah, I think stories are important. The second thing is view allyship as there's some comments, I'll get to that later. Second thing is view allyship as an action and not just a label. So obviously it's easier to call yourself an ally rather than be an ally, right? You have to actually do, you have to actually walk the talk, yeah, as they say. So, and that means you have to be consistent. Like if you go on any family gathering or friendships meetups, you hear any homophobic, transphobic jokes, or just any bad things about queer people, you need to call them out. You need to call them out and educate them. You need to say something like, okay, you know what, that's actually not very nice. That's quite homophobic. So, and then you educate them, you correct them, and you correct their misconception and tell them that it's not okay to say something like that. Or it could just be something simple like if you see any social media posts on LGBT issues, and in Malaysia we have quite a few, right? If you see a news about a politician saying something like LGBT is an illness, it should be cured and whatever, you share those posts on social media, share Insta story, Facebook story, whatever, and create discussions around it. Like if you if you have friends, maybe share it to your friends and then create discussions around it just to get the conversations going, like people need to know that this is not okay and that we need to talk about it at least. Yeah. Or even if you have time and capacity, you can volunteer at local LGBT organizations. I think that would be quite helpful as well. There's quite a few NGOs. You could Google search them. That's for just search LGBT organizations in Malaysia. A few will come up and just see if they have if they need anybody and just volunteer. Yeah. So hold on. Yeah. Create an inclusive and comfortable environment is the next one. So this is what I was talking about, when Lynette asked me about the pronouns. Yeah, so this is using gender neutral language would be creating a safe space for queer people. Just like you, instead of boyfriend, girlfriend, you use the word partner. Instead of husband, wife, you use the word spouse. Things like that, simple things like that. Again, respect gender pronouns. So if someone tells you I go by they, them pronouns, we need to try to respect that. You need to use that pronouns for that person when you're talking about them in third person. And again, like for example, showing your own pronouns in Zoom, for example, in Zoom meetups and meet calls, it would be helpful because like I mentioned just now, queer people don't know if the person is homophobic or an ally or queer friendly or neutral. We don't know that. So queer people don't know. And so a lot of times we have to play detective a little bit and we have to find like clues and try to detect clues to see is that person safe or not? And can I trust this person? Can I talk about my relationships with this person or not? And so there are a number of ways you can show people you are an ally. So if you really are an ally, you need to show them, like I said, you need to let your friends know, let your family know. Because you never know, some of them might be in the closet. I mean, you never truly know someone, right? If they want to hide it, they are able to hide it. So just show them that, I'm an ally. So if they need to come out or anything, they can come out to you. You can be a safe person for them. Yeah, so let people know that you are an ally to create an inclusive and comfortable environment. Next thing is also to reflect on our own privilege and bias. So if you are straight and if you are cisgender, then you need to reflect on all the ways that the systems have benefited you. Systems as in the policies, the law, the government, all of that, the culture, religion, how have all that benefited you and at the same time oppress queer people, right? So reflect on that. And only when you reflect on that, can you know your biases and assumptions that, like even I, as a queer person, I have assumptions and biases about the community, right? Like maybe about trans people or like just the whole gender pronouns thing. Yeah, I could have biases or assumptions. So I need to really know myself and know how I'm benefiting from the system as well. And in relations to the reflection is also to heal yourself. So do the work to heal. And this is something that I want to share a quote by someone. Their name is Alok, so A-L-O-K. I don't know if you've heard of this person. I'm just gonna briefly share their Instagram profile in the chat so you could check it out because yeah, that person is really good. Like every time I hear them speak, it's just insightful and mind-blowing. So I'm just gonna share it here. Yeah. So their name is Alok. And basically what they say in response to allyship is Alok said that I don't need your help. I just need you and the majority of society to heal your traumas. Because again, hurt people, right? So I just need y'all to heal your traumas. I need y'all to heal your toxic masculinity. I need y'all to heal from your rigid ideas about gender and sexuality, about what it means to be a man or a woman or a human. I need y'all to heal all of that, and then if you heal all of that, everything else we've been talking about will start making sense to you, right? You won't just understand what we're saying, you also feel what we're saying. And so it's not even about whether society accepts LGBT people. It's about accepting themselves. Do these homophobic, so-called homophobic, transphobic people, do they accept themselves or not? And if they don't, that's why they're hurting people. And so I would tell everyone, including straight and cisgender people, to reflect on your own sexuality, reflect on your own gender identity and your gender expressions. In what way have you lived your life conforming to expectations of society? From the way you dress, to the way you talk, to the way you act, and to the way you are. Like for example, women are always expected not to be too loud and confident, right? Because patriarchy can't stand that. And so that's an example as well. And then men are expected not to cry and be tough all the time. And so all of that expectations affects not just queer people, but straight and cisgender people as well. So do the work to heal. Yeah. I think that's the best that what people can do. It's good for themselves, it's also good for the world. Yeah. Last but not least, prepare to make mistakes and mess up. And it's okay, as long as you learn from it. I want to share an example. Like, I don't know if you all noticed in the registration form, initially it was not queer affirming. I think one of our participants here pointed it out, so thank you so much for that. Point out to us that, oh, the form isn't queer affirming because they asked for a name in the IC, and also gender only has male female options. There's no others option or non-binary option. So yes, you are right, it's not queer friendly, and so we messed up and we own up to it and we made the changes. So that is an example of like messing up, so to speak. Like even everyday life, like if you use the wrong pronouns for that person, you know, or if you accidentally made a homophobic joke, or if you didn't stand up for your gay friend when someone made homophobic jokes, then these are all the ways we make mistakes. But I feel like if we're not messing up, then we're not really learning, right? And so you have to have the courage to mess up and learn from it. Yeah, it is a very vulnerable process, I will say, but it is necessary. Yeah. So yeah, that's all. It's quite a lot, but yeah, these are all the points on how to be an ally for just everyday people. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. When you actually shared about Alok, I think that also really just, put on my heartstrings, because a lot of times, even like with queer friends also, even in the States, here in Malaysia, I've always like wondered, how can I be a better friend, right? When the world is not accepting of them. And it's tough, but then what you said about, like just find a way to heal yourself, and, like heal people, right? And it's just being that, just treating others like how you would treat any other person, right? Just being that support. And I find it to be very powerful as well, what you've just shared. And we've actually got some comments as well as more questions for you here.
Yeah, I'm reading it now. I think Dawn was the where we left off. Yeah, people make fun of pronouns. Oh, exactly. I've seen so much of it in among Malaysians, especially. It's really appalling and frustrating that they just don't respect it. Like even if you share like I go by they them, they don't respect that, and it's like yeah, born a certain way. Exactly. So they just address you based on how you are physically. So if you dress like a guy, they just say, oh, he, him. Like, why should I call you they, them? And I think that's just so disrespectful. And yes, unfortunately, that is something that's still happening in Malaysia. Yeah. Ian, not really a question, but have I experience to share? I've experienced bi erasure in high school. Friends thought it was a joke because people were joking about being LGBT. Yeah, see, that's the thing. That's what I saw too. we don't really talk about LGBT unless it's in a humorous, joking way in school, in Malaysia at least. That's what I experienced as well during my school days. Yeah, because of not wanting to be outed, I shared picture or stories when I had a girlfriend. Right. The internet helped a lot as queer friends. Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing, Ian. That's really meaningful story, and I guess relatable to a lot of people as well, that there is a clear bi erasure in school. And sometimes because of how society is, it's kind of forces you to only show one side of who you are, right? Which is dating girls and having a girlfriend, but not when you're dating guys and all that, you don't show. Yeah, for sure that could happen. And I want to point out that when you say like queer friends, internet helps, yes. I'm gonna get to that later when we talk about how people can seek support. Online communities can be very powerful for queer people. And so I'm glad you shared that, Ian. Andrea, I have a question. What are some what are some ways you help clients who are feeling very low about their queer identity and unable to come out because worry of being outcast? Yeah, this is unfortunately one of those it is what it is situation, right? Where you can't change reality, you can't change the systems. What I usually do is I help them. I guess I validate those feelings first. I normalize it, and I say things like, "Of course, you would feel horrible. Yeah, I mean, there's no support at all in anywhere, right? And you don't know if your friends are queer affirming or queer friendly. You don't know that, and family also you don't really know. So yes, of course, that sucks. If they are ready for practical suggestions, I would suggest online communities where they might be able to find connections there. But if they're not ready for that yet, for any actions yet, I'll just stick with validating and I guess helping the client connect with their feelings internally. How do they feel? Where do they feel that in their body? What does that feel like? Mostly that just validation, and I guess being that person for them, being that safe person for them. Because for a lot of queer clients, the therapist can often be a great source of comfort and safety for that client. Like as a therapist, you might be the first person telling them it's okay to be gay. And you might be the first person telling them there's nothing wrong with you and things like that. So it's not about client overly depending on you, but it's just about offering that initial safe space first to the client. Yeah. So that's very briefly how I would help. I mean, obviously there's a lot more nuance to that. But yeah. Just wondering whether you've come across cases where clients' expression of their queerness might put them at risk. Let me think. So far, I don't think I have. I had one trans client, but she never really came back after that. But she came in with pants because the parents kind of don't know that she's trans. But later on, she asked me if she can take off the pants because she was wearing a skirt underneath. And I said, okay, sure, whatever you're comfortable with. Yeah, that is a bit hard. And I would just say, yeah, I would validate, but I would say try to find safe space, whether it's with friends or just your own safe space, physical space, where you can be yourself. Because it is very real. The consequence, the harmful consequence is very real when it comes to all these things, right? If the way you express yourself indicates queerness, then you have to hide it to prevent from being harassed or beaten up or anything like that. Yeah, so I would definitely validate that part of needing to be safe, but I would also encourage them to find safety in other ways, like whether it's joining a community, queer community, or online queer community. Yeah, I feel like you will be able to find a safe space, but it will take a lot of work. Yeah, and also finding a safe space within themselves, like I mentioned. Do they even feel safe in their own body? Do they even feel safe in their own skin? Yeah. Okay, Wei Yi says very insightful. Okay, glad you found it insightful. Have to drop off. Okay. I don't. Is she still there? No. Yeah. I'll text her
Yeah.
later because she's my friend. Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for all the questions. Yeah. Thanks for all the questions. I think they're really insightful questions. And if you have any further questions, you can DM me on Instagram if you follow my Instagram as well. Yeah. So I'll be happy to answer them.
Yeah, we'll be sharing Kinji's Instagram account at the end of the session, so you can follow him, and you could also, I think Kinji more than happy to take in questions after
Yeah.
that relating to the topic that we'll be talking about today. I suppose, Kinji, you have also already touched on some of the things that we plan to touch on, the third part on how queer people can actually seek support from people around them, because we mentioned that it's so difficult, right? Like systemic wise, nobody seems to be accepting of this. Like people are just shouting no to queer people. And even within the same community, there are also biasness and even sexism going around. So coming out is difficult. Accepting is even harder. How can they actually seek support from people around them? How do they make themselves feel safe? Like when you said you need to first feel safe with your own skin, right? How do they do that?
Yeah, so I think for a lot of queer people, like the very first thing they do is self-education. And so especially those people, queer people who are just only finding out their sexual identity or gender identity. And they're very new to this whole thing, to the whole LGBT scene. And so I think the internet is really a miracle. So yeah, with internet, I think, yeah, there's a lot of resources out there. So I would say make use of the internet and again, YouTube videos or read articles about LGBT experience, Instagram, TikTok accounts that are run by queer people. Yeah, look those up and you could see, again, never know, like those could be the first people that you see that are queer or that are queer affirming. And those are the places where you would first learn about what it means to be gay, what it means to be trans and all that. And so make use of the internet and it can hopefully help you understand your own experiences better, and provide insights into self-care if you need. Because I think a lot of queer influencers on social media, they talk about self-care as well. As a queer person, it's not easy. So these are the things they do. And I think it can feel empowering to educate yourself and have that knowledge for yourself. You no longer feel so helpless. Yeah. Ian said, I find queeringthemap.com very affirming. Oh, I haven't heard of this. Okay, I'll check it out later. I haven't actually heard of that website. Yeah, so yeah, websites like that. I think there are some forums as well, which I will get into later, which is about online support. So seek online support, which is what Ian did, right? And he is sharing just now. Look for online communities, forums, support groups online. Was it? Yeah, those are the places where it's easier for you to find fellow queer people compared to physical spaces, because for queer people in Malaysia, even physical spaces are hard to come by. Like there are some, but they're not really widely promoted because obviously they have to like protect themselves, right? What if like the religious officers come find them and things like that? So they can't even promote themselves widely. So queer people who is not in the loop, they don't know that such a place exists. And so where do they look? Online communities, Facebook groups, Discord groups. I don't use Discord, so I don't know what groups are there, but I'm sure there are some queer groups as well. So join these groups, find like-minded people and develop connections. And it's maybe easier as well because for people with like social anxiety or maybe a bit shy, in person might be a bit daunting. So online, maybe it's a bit less scary for them. Yeah, so definitely I would say online platforms can provide a safe space for queer people, whether they want to share experience or seek advice or just find support. Yes, seek online support. So that's the second one. The third one would be find local LGBT organizations. So this is what I talked about earlier, the physical spaces. There are quite a few here. I don't know if you've heard of like Pluho, like I forgot what's it. People Like Us Hang Out. I think that's the full thing for the acronym. Yeah. So Pluho is basically an organization that is focusing on what is it? Yeah, it focuses on providing support to queer communities in Malaysia. So they do a lot of things. I didn't really follow their work that closely, but I know that they do events sometimes, or they provide counseling service, or at least they used to provide a referral for queer counselors or queer affirming counselors. So they run a project called Bluebird Project. I think it's been recently discontinued because of lack of funding. But they used to have that as a referral service for queer Malaysians or just queer people in Malaysia to find counselors. Yeah, so that's one of the things that they do. There's other organizations like Seed Foundation, which is for trans people. It's a safe space for safe haven for transgender people. I think they provide housing support as well and whatnot. So yeah, that's for trans people. And there's one called Antara Kita. So it's Antara Kita as in QITA. So I think this organization, they provide, they run events, they run community events for queer people. I think during Pride Month, there was a lot of events during that time. And so they run things like, what's it called? Yeah, they run things like book club meetings. So queer people who read books, like they can just come and talk about the books that they read, for example. They also run a support group, for queer people, which is free. So it's an online support group. They also have a physical space. So I think some weeks they go physical, some weeks they go online. Wait, I'm just gonna quickly share that Instagram page. So because of safety, they are actually it's a private account. So you have to request to follow, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And to follow it, you have to click on some link and it will prompt you to another page that you have to fill out some basic information. And so just for them to, it's like a screening process because they can't just let anybody in, right? Like, what if it's a religious officers in disguise, like a spy? So like they have to be careful. So yeah, this is why they have that. Again, it makes things harder, doesn't it?
Yeah, even that is like, we are
Yeah.
trying to provide support to other members,
Yeah.
and then yet that can be very risky, like, and
Exactly.
that is very anxiety inducing.
It is, exactly, yeah. And so even organizations like that, like not a lot of people, not all queer people follow this page and know about this. So it's really hard for queer people who don't really have that community, who don't really have a friend. And I only found out about this because of a friend of mine who is queer. And so yeah, otherwise I would have known about this, right? And so yeah, it's a bit hard to find support, but it is out there. You just need to look at the right places, I guess, or I just need to look at the right places, and again, Google search. Hopefully something comes up in Google search. Sometimes when you click on the social media and prompt you to Instagram, then that's where you can find it. Yeah. Okay, thanks, Andrea. Yeah, I've heard of Jejaka as well. Yeah. So NGO provides support mainly for Malay queer community. So this is a bit more race specific as well. So yeah. And I would say because Malay queer community, they face a unique set of struggles as well, being Malay in Malaysia is like, it's actually illegal. So to be queer as a Malay. So yeah. Thanks for sharing, Andrea. Yeah, that's one as well. There's quite a few others as well. So if you want to know more, you can again DM me on Instagram, or you can just do a quick Google search as well. Yeah. So local LGBT organizations, the last but not least is to seek professional help, so therapists. So if you have the resources and if you can afford to, try to seek therapy, because that is when you can work on a lot of the inner issues, right? Do a lot of inner healing work. So reach out to queer affirming therapists. If you don't know, you can look up their profile if they have a profile on the website, and you just see if they are queer affirming. And if they didn't write anything, you can maybe WhatsApp the admin or something, or call them to just ask. You don't even have to reveal your identity, but you can just ask whether or not they're queer affirming. And I say therapy is important because it provides a safe space for clients to connect with themselves. Yeah, so you don't know, like maybe at home, at work, or in school, they don't have that safe space to even connect with themselves, to even find out who they are, how they're feeling about certain things. And so therapy is that safe space for them to really connect with their inner experiences and also connect with the therapist. Like I mentioned just now, if the queer person haven't really got any support in their life, the therapist could be the first person that is a source of support. So yeah, having them connect with the therapist is important as well. If they could build the rapport, yeah, the therapist could be a great source of, could be a great resource for the client. Because when we talk about trauma and like queer trauma is often relational. So we get trauma by being in relationships with people. So firstly is with our parents. That's how we develop that childhood trauma, relationship with parents, grandparents, relatives, and later on with schoolmates, with classmates, teachers, later on with friends, colleagues, co-workers, and bosses. And so those are how those are how we get trauma. And so that's why I say trauma is relational, and to heal, it has to be relational as well. That's why it's not enough to just, sometimes it's not enough to just learn on your own on YouTube. You know, like you can learn CBT and all that on your own technically, but it's just a different thing being able to connect with another human being on a relational level. That relationship itself can be a source for healing. Yeah, so that itself can be a resource for the client. Second thing, why therapy is important, because therapists can provide psychoeducation to address any misconceptions that you might have. I mean, for sure, you can find this out on YouTube, on social media as well. But therapy can provide that as well, where if the therapists have enough knowledge, they can tell you certain things. Like a lot of people's cases are very nuanced and complex, right? So maybe sometimes a quick Google search is not enough because it doesn't really it's not really customized to their experience, but with therapists, it is customized to their experience. And so any biases or misconceptions they have about being queer, that is where the therapist can jump in and address and validate and do all that work, right, within that safe space. Finally, it would be therapy can provide embodied healing. And embodied healing means embodied healing is a body-based approach. So we're not just working with the thoughts, you know, we're not just changing your perspective of what it means to be queer. We are also working with your nervous system in your body, that fight or flight response, as we call it. We're working with that as well. Because for queer people, their body's nervous system has been wounded since childhood. Usually, most of the time, it's been wounded. So they're in a constant state of fight or flight. And yeah, constant state of fight or flight. And they just, it's hard to get out of that because they have to be on guard and hypervigilant to stay alive, to survive, given their past experiences. And so embodied healing is really saying that healing starts from your body, right? Healing starts from the body. You need to be able to connect with your body first. How are you feeling in your body? You know, what are body sensations that you're feeling? Where are you feeling those sensations? And gradually it's working with a therapist to learn to feel safe within your body again. And learning to feel safe means you are able to have the capacity to stay in that feeling in your body. That you're not just like the moment you feel some discomfort in your body, you just quickly ignore it or shut it down. So feeling safe means you don't do that. You try to stay in it with the therapist's guidance, and hopefully develop the capacity to withstand discomfort and pain from life, because life is painful and life is uncomfortable, and that's the only constant. And so yeah, it's about expanding our capacity to deal with that. And so with queer people, the healing oftentimes starts from the body as well. They need to feel that they are enough, not just think they are enough as a person. They need to feel that as well. So that's why I say working with a therapist is really important in that case. Yeah. So yeah, that's about it. Yeah, that's my points for how people can seek support. And again, thanks Andrea for sharing more resource. It's really great. Queer Lapis is another one as well. Yeah, and it's a really smart name. It's a pun, I think, on Queer Lapis. Is it? Yeah. Yeah, thanks Andrea for sharing. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kenji, for sharing, like, such an insightful and also very empowering session with us this evening. I mean, to be honest, I came in also almost like a blank canvas. To an extent, also, after listening to you, I felt also sometimes a bit ignorant, right? And yes, I think one important thing that really stuck out to me is when we make mistakes, it's okay to just then admit to it, and then learn from it. But I think most importantly is that, all the resources that you have shared, I think it's very helpful, and it helps us also to move forward to be a better ally to our queer friends, to our queer clients, as well as the community. And with that, I think we've come to an end, but I also want to just ask if there are any more questions, comments that anyone would like to share. Please feel free to do so in the next 1 minute or so. And as you do that, also, if you have something perhaps more private that you would want to talk or, have a discussion with Kinji about, feel free to also, add him on Instagram. It's keen2heal. Right, there we go. Lynette has kindly shared his Instagram handle. That's in the chat box. Yeah, so you have also direct access to him. Let's see, any questions? Going once, going twice. Okay, I guess that is it. Thank you all so much for your time, for joining in, for also your insightful perspectives, sharings, experiences, for being so vulnerable and courageous at the same time. And before we end, I also just want to address the fact that even though Puveshini was supposed to be having this dialogue with Kinji, she's unfortunately unable to make it due to personal matters. So hence that's why it's Lynette and I this evening. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. Anything else, Lynette, if you want to add on? And with that, thank you all once again. Have a good